Thank you very much. That was very moving. Who were the two adolescents?
It was not clear, and my guess really is that they are simply shepherds who were grazing their sheep and saw a man and a woman and thought they would come and hide their faces and have some fun. Of course, it was impossible to know, and it was impossible to know how dangerous it's going to be, because they had these batons and looked a bit scary, especially hiding their face. But the important thing is what a world of difference there was between us. They had not appreciated that this is a land that could possibly be a place where people can walk normally. They had not accepted that a man and a woman could take a pleasure walk without any other purpose in mind. They felt and acted that if they have a chance, they will repeat what the Israelis do. So the Israelis ask for identification card because they can, and so they felt themselves in a position to do this. They were repeating the Israeli way. They were repeating the Israeli aggression as well. And it's all very worrisome what is happening to the young as a result of the brutalization that the occupation has put them through. And in a way, it was very difficult for me to deal with this, because the hills have been a separate territory where I went to be away from the arrangements that had been created by the Israelis, where there are separate roads, where there are areas for the settlements, and where the Palestinians are confined to their areas, and the only time when and the rest of the country is for the Israeli settlers, and the lines where the two cross is only at the checkpoints, really. And so to break all of that new map and new arrangement of the landscape, I used to find refuge in the hills. And in the hills, I've started having confrontations, sometimes like this, and sometimes with settlers.
In one of the walks, you describe a confrontation with an armed settler and his gun, and but you still go out. So you've had these violent confrontations. You still go out walking, don't you? In fact, you set up a walking group, haven't you? My preferred manner of walking is alone or with one or two other people, but this really has become not safe anymore. And so we now have a walking group, and we walk every Friday, and sometimes Saturday and Sunday, now that the group has enlarged. And that way we feel a little safer. But I had a confrontation also after the publication of the book. There was a BBC radio reporter who wanted to have a walk, and we went down not far from where this incident that I read you about took place. And it was interesting because we met a settler in the village of Ain Kenya, and he also asked for identification cards and said, "What are you doing?" And he couldn't believe that we were just simply walking. And then I thought, what business does he have asking me for an identification card? So I told him, "Who are you and where do you come from?" And he said, "I come from here. Unlike you, I really live here." And this really is interesting, because these guys were saying, "Where do you really live?" And he was saying, he really lives here, unlike me, where in his mind my presence in Palestine is a temporary matter. So you have it from both sides, in a sense. The book I think won the political prize because you chart the changing nature of the landscape and the damage done to it by the process of occupation, and that becomes a sort of political description. But do you also see walking as in itself, as you describe it, pleasure walking, do you see that as a political act?
I think walking is so important for me that I don't want to make of it something. I mean, it should be an act of enjoyment and pleasure, but there certainly is a political aspect to it, because the entire idea of the arrangements, which I try to describe in the book, that the Israelis have been pursuing since the late 70s, are to isolate the Palestinians in enclaves and leave the rest of the land free for more and more settlements. And so the alienation that results from thinking and feeling that the land is a dangerous place is very important to break through. And very often when we, in the walking group, we meet villagers, they say, what are you doing? Again, like these guys were saying, what are you doing? And we say, taking a pleasure walk. And they can't believe it. They say, but it's too dangerous. And even people who live in villages, who used to walk all the time for various reasons or work in the land, have become separated from the land. And through the walking group, we have several photographers who have been taking photographs, beautiful photographs of the landscape. And just recently, last month, we had an exhibit in Ramallah of these photographs. And the idea was to show people who are not walking how beautiful is the land and how important it is to keep in contact with it and not allow this separation and alienation to take place. The other unfortunate thing is that because of the way things are going and the dangers, the schools are not taking the school children out to walks and picnics as used to happen in the past. And so we have a generation, by now more than one generation, I suppose 2 or 3, who have grown up without ever having gone out and walked in the land. So in a sense, yes, there is a political dimension to walking in the land and to trying and propagating that through photography. And now there are several video films that have been made also, which have been shown around and bring out the beauty in the land.
And there's also the concept, isn't it, the traditional Palestinian concept of Sarha?
Sarha, yeah.
Perhaps you could explain that.
Yeah, well, Sarha was going out into the fields, into nature without an objective in mind. Just letting go, having communion with nature. It's I grew up always hearing about people going on a sarha, and the idea was you just go and let go without having a specific objective or end result. And in a way, my book of 6 walks, and the 7th is the post-publication walk, is an attempt at recovering that sense of sarha and allowing the reader to feel what it feels like to be on a sarha.